What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And today, we're going to be doing another episode in our Rant series. This one will be the first Major League Baseball one. We're going to be discussing the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, in case you can't tell, I have two things going on that are different. Today, we have the different background. This will be coming up here and there. It might become more of a permanent background for me, depending on a few things. I just want to see how it goes. And secondly, I do have a different pair of headphones in. I don't know if you guys can hear me better. I did a little bit of an audio check, and I feel like these are a little better than the old ones I had. So let me know if you notice any difference. But without further ado, we will jump right into this video. And point one you'll see is the 2020 World Series. So as of this recording, the Dodgers have just won the World Series in 2020. And obviously, I was not rooting for the Dodgers. You know, I didn't want them to win. And I was rooting for the Rays big time. I didn't want to see the Dodgers win. I was sick of them. You know, they just got Mookie Betts and all those other guys. I didn't want to see them win a World Series. And they did it. So it's not the biggest downside, but I was not rooting for them. And obviously that upsets me to an extent. Leaving Brooklyn. So a little bit of family history real quick. My grandma was actually born and raised in Brooklyn for a good portion of her life. She moved out of Brooklyn in the early 1960s, but she spent a good 25, 30 years in Brooklyn. So whenever she'd go to a sports game, it would either be a boxing match, again, different times, or a Brooklyn Dodgers game. And she was a big Dodgers fan. And her, you know, obviously my great-grandfather was as well. But what ends up happening is the Dodgers leave Brooklyn the same year the Giants leave Brooklyn, actually. So it was a little bit of a slap in the face to the New York City, but they just wanted to go out west, and it was just kind of, obviously I was not alive, but it was just kind of a slap in the face to all the fans that had been loyal since the beginning, since the early 1900s when the Dodgers were the Brooklyn Robins at that time. So yeah, and of course my grandma was still somewhat rooting for the Dodgers, but not the same. It's not the same as when you're physically there. Treatment of the Yankees early on. So I'll say the same thing with when we get to the San Francisco Giants. But when the Yankees became a team, both the Dodgers and the Giants were just rude to them. They didn't want to acknowledge them. They just thought, you know, the Yankees aren't a real thing. If we don't acknowledge them, what does it matter? You know, they're not going to last. They're not going to exist. If we just ignore them and treat them like they're garbage, no one will support them. And it's just rude to do that to any team and any type of anything like that. And, I mean, the Yankees end up getting the last laugh, but, you know, I just never liked how they did that. And it was more, again, that was more the Giants than the Dodgers, but big payroll market. So here we are in the 2020s, and the Dodgers have been one of the big payroll teams for a long time, and obviously that's because they're in a big market, Los Angeles. Now, we'll get to a bullet point on that in a second, but obviously I'm a Phillies fan, so I'm a big market, big payroll team as well. But it doesn't mean I can't not hate other teams for doing it too, because it does to an extent ruin baseball. Because now we have some teams that are so much better off than others. Obviously, you know, a team that can throw $200 million in payroll every year is typically going to be able to beat a team that spends $75 million on payroll every year. It's just common sense. You can keep the better players. When your guys develop, you don't have to lose them in free agency and go by draft picks again and again and again. So, and of course, we'll get to a little bit more on the big market, but overshadow Angels. So I've said it before, the Angels are, I do like the Angels a bit because of Mike Trout. So the fact that the Dodgers have always overshadowed the Angels has just kind of upset me in my life as I gotten a little older and looked at it. You know, it's kind of like when you go to Chicago. It's all Cubs. Nobody really cares about the White Sox. Now, there are, of course, some people who are White Sox fans. There are some people who are Angels fans. But typically, outside of the cities, I don't think I can tell you I've ever really seen a White Sox fan or an Angels fan outside in my life, really. I've seen Cubs fans. I've seen Dodgers fans. But I haven't really seen anyone for either the Angels or the White Sox. And it just kind of shows you, yes, it's a big market, but two teams really can't exist. Jumpstart Boston rebuild. So we know, I've done a trade breakdown on this, and it was about the whole Carl Crawford Adrian Gonzalez trade to the Dodgers from the Red Sox. Now, the Dodgers took a ton of payroll from Boston, and they gave Boston some good young talent and prospects. And obviously, you guys know anything with Boston I do not like. So, anytime you help Boston, that's a knock on you. And it's not the only time they've done it. Again, they traded with Boston. They got Mookie Betts. That's a trade for another day. We don't want to discuss that right now. Obviously, it's only been 60 games plus postseason. But it's a big knock on me when you do that. When you help out Boston, I don't want anything to do with it. So they helped Boston return to the World Series a year later or 2 years after that trade and obviously win the World Series. And then, of course, a couple of the pieces were at least hung around or were traded in themselves to get players that helped Boston make the World Series and win it in 2018. So just not a fan of that. Manny Ramirez. So Manny Ramirez is one of the players that most people just don't like. And I am not the biggest fan of Manny myself. Manny Ramirez has always had that attitude. He always thought he deserved everything. And obviously, later in life, we found out that he had PEDs and all that good stuff. He ends up getting suspended. He ends up retiring because of his suspension. But in LA, he just had that, I'm better than you, I'm holier than thou, that type of attitude. And I never liked Manny to begin with, so when all of a sudden he gets this attitude of, I'm in LA, I'm the best player there is, it made me dislike the guy even more. LA in general. I have said it before, I have no intention to step foot in that city. I have absolutely no intention to step foot in the city of Los Angeles in my life. There's numerous reasons for that, but I just am not a fan of that city at all. There's nothing there that I really want to see in my life. The only reason I would go would be to see an Angels game. But I don't believe the Angels play in the city proper, so I'd be fine. So I'm pretty sure they play in Anaheim themselves, so I'd be fine. I might have to fly into LA, but I have no intention to step foot in LA. So I don't want to get started on that. Their fan base and their attitude. So I do two fantasy baseball leagues. And one of my leagues is run by a Dodgers fan. Very nice guy. Great guy. Love talking to him. He knows his Dodgers. And he's fine. But there's a couple other Dodgers fans in that league. And all they do is talk trash about everybody that isn't the Dodgers. And yes, I understand every single fan base has that. I get it. But when you see it firsthand, it really gets annoying. It's why I don't like Boston. The Boston fans are notorious for that. New York fans are notorious for that. Philadelphia fans are notorious for that, but I'm one of them. So it's one of those things that I don't like. And your attitude is, we're better than you. So especially now that they've won the 2020 World Series, their first World Series win since '88, they're going to be acting like they're the best, they're the kings of the world. Fact of the matter is, yes, you were the World Series favorites to start off the World Series run, but, to start the season. But guess what? Fact of the matter is, it was a shortened season, and a lot of people are going to say, we're putting asterisks by it because it wasn't a full season. I am not one of those people, but the fans are very happy about the whole thing. Good for them. Everyone deserves to win except Boston. But, the fact is, you guys already won a championship this year in 2020. You won a couple weeks ago. So I don't really think you deserve 2 championships in 1 year. That's me, though. 2008 and 2009 NLCS. Yeah, this is just a little bit of a shot at the Dodgers fans. I just wanted to include this. They met up with the Phillies in both 2008 and 2009 in the National League Championship Series. The Dodgers lost both times. I believe it was 4-1, 4-2 in 2009. And obviously the Phillies would go on to win and lose their respective World Series. But just a little bit of a shot at the Dodgers fans. You guys were our rivals in the late 2000s, and you fell to us both times. So, Diamondbacks. So I've made it known before that the Diamondbacks are, to an extent, one of my favorite teams. And they're a big rival with the Dodgers. Now, Patrick's, if you remember, he is also a Giants fan as well as a Braves fan. So he and I both dislike the Dodgers for that reason. Because, our secondary teams are arch rivals with the Dodgers. So neither of us wanted to see the Dodgers win. And he has even more hatred for the Dodgers because recently, obviously, the Dodgers have knocked out his Braves in two of the past 3 postseasons. But it just goes to show you, the Diamondbacks are big rivals with the Dodgers. And unfortunately, now the Dodgers have a World Series title in the 21st century. So that takes away any bragging rights the Phillies had, the Diamondbacks had over the Dodgers. But, I mean, time will tell with the Dodgers. Like I had done before, I try to mention one good thing about each team. And, of course, the best thing I'm going to say about the Dodgers is you guys broke the color barrier with Jackie Robinson. So I got a lot of respect for that. I know the Dodgers took a lot of hate when they did that. And I remember, talking to my grandma. She listened to that game when it happened. She and her dad were listening to it. And it's just amazing to know that you guys are the ones who broke the color barrier. So thank you for doing that, Dodgers. No problems with that. That's the one good thing I will say. Also, you know what? I've always been a fan of Clayton Kershaw. So thank you for at least getting Clayton Kershaw a ring and A.J. Pollock a ring from Connecticut, A.J. Pollock. So, yeah, that was our Dodgers rant video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good rest of your day.